When sleeplessness pushed me into the night, a Hoodie walk, a chance reunion, and the dawn of a forgotten connection. It was one of those nights when you stare at your ceiling and wonder if the world ever sleeps, your mind racing, schematics of tomorrow weaving through your head, a dozen half-formed ideas buzzing above the silence. I tried everything to quiet the noise, scrolled TikTok until my thumb burned, switched from pop to ambient playlists, stared at the glowing screen until my eyes ached. Nothing helped. It felt like lying in a room full of thoughts I couldn't escape, each one louder than the last. By 2:30 a.m. or somewhere around there, I gave up. The bed felt heavy with the weight of my insomnia, so I threw on a green hoodie that smelled faintly of laundry detergent and night breeze. I stepped out of the house, closing the door on my unquiet mind, and started walking. The air was cool, translucent under the pale light of street lamps. My pulse slowed as I left the artificial hum of the house and stepped into a world that felt suspended, a quiet city podiumed in midnight stillness. 10 minutes into the walk, I found myself on the sidewalk near my neighbor's driveway. I was almost past when I heard a voice I didn't expect, his laugh, half muffled, but familiar. I turned. He was stepping into his car, back toward the street, that posture so oddly recognizable, a loose jacket, jeans, the tilt of his hat. It had been years, since college graduation, in fact. Not a best friend, but someone I'd shared a strange, vivid slice of time with, weekend study sessions, nights out that blurred into mornings, inside jokes that made us burst out laughing in crowded coffee shops. That specific era when life felt messy and meaningful, high on ambition, glimmers of doubt, and reckless hope. We paused, recognition shining in the air between us. I fumbled a greeting, "Hey, man." And he smiled wide, that sort of easy smile that felt like forgiveness for years gone by. "Hey," he said, closing the car door. "Can't sleep?" "Nope," I admitted. "Same here." I motioned toward the street. "Mind if I walk with you for a bit?" He nodded. We started down the empty road together, not stepping fast, but not dragging either. Our breaths came in even puffs in the cold air. We picked up pace, shoving our hands into pockets, moving alongside lines of parked cars and silhouetted houses. The world was hushed, occasional dog barks, a soft hum of distant traffic, but mostly quiet enough to feel like a shared secret. We talked in that way you do when you haven't spoken in years but a bridge is still waiting. 1 hour stretched as though it were carved out of the night itself. 2 hours came and passed without us noticing. The conversation was simple and surprising, questions about what we'd been doing, curiosity about my new job, his recent move to a different state for work, how long it took the dog to settle in. Then more personal things crept into our dialogue, the losses we carried, pregnancies that had come and gone, relationships that drifted away like paper boats, joys we felt disguised as tiny ruptures, first paycheck, first home, first time calling someone family outside of blood. Somewhere between sharing his new address and describing his next project, I realized how much time had scuttled past, and how easily the door had swung open between us. It was like decades became minutes. I remembered long conversations in college labs, rewinding half-forgotten discussions about careers, movies, politics. I remembered the feeling of being understood in a way that no longer seems to exist in adulthood. Around 4 a.m., I suggested we head back. The sky was beginning to whisper light, paler shades of blue and gray seeping into horizon. Our footsteps slowed in recognition of morning approaching. We stood in front of his car. "Good to see you," he said, voice steady but warm. "You too," I answered. "Seriously, thank you." The words felt small. I realized I didn't know exactly what I was thanking him for, but gratitude pulsed in my chest anyway. Thankful for meeting him again at this odd hour, thankful for being reminded of who I was 10 years ago and who I'd become since. He nodded, sliding into the driver's seat. "Sleep now?" I teased. He snorted and shook his head as he pulled his seatbelt across. "We'll see." He rolled down the window. "Text me sometime," he said, voice low. "Let's not wait 12 years next time." I promised I would, and we said goodnight. He pulled away, headlights receding down the dark street. I watched till he turned the corner, his tail lights the last signal of the unexpected conversation. I walked back home, the world now fully awakening. Birds started their first songs. Streetlights blinked off one by one. The city exhaled from its deep night breath, shifting into early morning calm. I felt at once changed and unchanged, a continuity with the person who'd left the house sleepless hours before, and also different, as though that spontaneous reunion had renewed something inside me. A sense of connection flickered, an old memory rekindled, tucked into a new chapter. Inside, I shut the door carefully so as not to wake anyone. I peeled off my hoodie, hugged it to my chest for a moment, comforting and familiar. Then I climbed into the bed, no TikTok, no music. I turned off the lamp and closed my eyes. Sleep came almost immediately, soft as forgiveness. The memory of that night stayed with me. How odd it was that insomnia led me to a conversation that stitched past and present together. A reminder that sometimes the most vivid moments aren't planned, they're stumbled into, under the cloak of dark, with nothing but two people walking toward dawn. Morning sun filtered through blinds. I woke later, restless but calm. The house was quiet and still. I reflected back on my skin warmed by movement, the sense of time suspended. My phone lit up with a single message. Hey, that night was unexpected but good. Let's catch up this weekend? I stared at the words. My heart fluttered. I typed back immediately, absolutely. Let's do it. I smiled as I put the phone down. One small choice, not minding the insomnia, throwing on a hoodie, stepping into the night, had changed a chapter. Instead of one more long, alone night, it had given me reconnection and hope. The memory would stay with me, a gentle reminder that even in our random, wandering moments, life can surprise us. That night held a lesson, that sometimes, you have to leave the room to come home again. It was one of those nights. My mind raced through fragments, unfinished emails, half-remembered dreams, worries about tomorrow. No matter what I tried, sleep stayed out of reach. I scrolled mindlessly through TikTok, switching between ambient playlists, but nothing soothed the buzzing in my head. By 2:30 a.m., I surrendered. Pulling on a well-worn hoodie, I crept out of the house. The front door closed behind me, sealing off the artificial glow of the bedroom. Outside, the world felt expansive and quiet, street lamps casting long shadows, a soft hush that caressed the sidewalks. For a moment, I simply stood there, breathing in the nighttime stillness. I began to walk. Research suggests night walks can calm the mind, regulate melatonin, and alleviate stress, benefits especially helpful when sleep eludes you. Even without knowing the science, the rhythm of my steps calmed the chatter inside my head. I wandered aimlessly, watching my breath puff in the cold air, noticing the scent of dew on concrete. There was something compelling about the city at night, its usual hum replaced by a silent lull, as if the world itself had exhaled and paused. The mind quieted when the body moved, each step a metronome dialing down the chaos. About 10 minutes into my ramble, I rounded a corner and froze. Ahead, under a flickering street lamp, was someone I hadn't seen in years, more than a friend, but less than family. A college acquaintance who had been a constant companion during that strange, hopeful era before life took us elsewhere. He was stepping toward his car in the driveway of my neighbor's place. His posture, that tilt of the head, the easy familiarity, it all flickered a memory that pulled me in like a magnet. I approached. "Hey," I said softly. He looked up, startled, then broke into a grin, the kind reserved for moments that remind you how resilient memory can be. "Well, damn," he replied. We talked. I asked how he'd been. He mentioned his new job, the friend he visited, the pandemic hitch we shared in stories but not spaces. But even as small talk flowed, something deeper surfaced, a mutual solitude that nights like this tend to reveal. Before we knew it, an hour had passed. Then another. Night has a way of slowing time. Research suggests darkness gently lowers cortisol, calms the nervous system, and primes us for vulnerability and connection. We found ourselves walking, slowly, side by side, past quiet houses and empty lots. We delved deeper, childhood losses, postponed dreams, the fear and relief of being who we'd become. He talked about moving across states, finding solace in a backyard with raised beds and unfinished projects. I shared the lingering restlessness of adulthood, how nights like this felt both isolating and strangely alive. I realized then, reconnection doesn't demand grand gestures. Sometimes it needs shared silence, two people stirring the night air with their words and presence. Sleep might stay elusive, but human connection can feel like its own kind of rest. Around 4 a.m., the sky began to whisper dawn, faint grays edging the horizon. We paused on an empty curb, letting the quiet expand between us. "This was good," he said quietly. "Thanks for walking with me." "Yeah," I replied. "You too." He pulled out his phone. "Text me," he said. "Let's not wait another decade." I nodded, that same easy smile unfolding with the warmth of possibility. We exchanged numbers, two signals flicking on in the pre-dawn hush. He climbed into his car. The engine started with a soft sputter. I watched as he drove away, taillights receding into the gentle veil of morning. I turned back toward home. By the time I stepped through my front door, The first birds were starting to stir, the lamp posts dimming their glow. A neighborhood engager, a light that transitions between worlds. Instead of collapsing onto the bed as before, I took my hoodie to the laundry hamper, folded it neatly, and climbed into bed without a sound. My pillow held no tick-tock glow. The silence felt different, full, expansive. Sleep came quickly. Maybe it was the walk, maybe it was the reconnection, maybe it was simply the elimination of that frantic bedroom energy. Or maybe it was all of those things, the gentle release that happens when movement and conversation and moonlight collide. Sunlight pooled on the floors as I opened my eyes. For once, I felt as if I'd actually slept, not just drifted, but slept. And in that calm, I remembered the walk, the conversation, the way life felt malleable in certain M-hour moments. A text lit up my phone. Hey. That was unexpected but really good. Coffee this weekend? My heart gave a little glad leap. I tapped back, would love that. I often imagine that road, its silent fences, humming streetlight poles, the way shadows stretched. I remember his voice, low and thoughtful, warming with authenticity. I remember how dawn felt like gratitude when it finally came. In many ways, it was exactly the night I needed, not a wild reconnection or a transformative revelation, but a soft reconnection. A reminder that some people persist in our stories, with cobwebs of shared pasts waiting for breath. And that an insomniac night might feel endless, but sometimes, that's when life chooses to surprise you. Later that weekend, we met at a quiet cafe. Warm light spilled through front windows. Steam curled from mugs as our hands settled into memory, not the edges of college gossip, but deep memories of shared nuance. We spoke of music we still liked, regrets we'd grown past, plans still unwritten. The night walk made it easier. There was a shorthand now, tension broken by moonlight and open sidewalks. We smiled without nostalgia, carried forward by the knowledge that sometimes small decisions, like giving up on bed, putting on a hoodie, stepping out, can unlock nights you won't forget. The night I couldn't sleep became a moment I won't forget. Not because I reconnected with someone exactly like before, but because the night air, a spontaneous reunion, and a willingness to walk into silence offered restoration. A reminder that sometimes, insomnia isn't just an obstacle, it's an invitation. My mind buzzed like a faulty neon sign, relentless thoughts, unfinished reminders, worry spirals. I'd tried everything to drift off, flicking through TikTok, trying ambient playlists, even deep breathing. Nothing helped. By 2:30 a.m., I accepted defeat. I pulled on a faded gray hoodie, the one with soft sleeves and hoodie string ends fraying, and decided to walk. Anything felt better than lying in bed chasing elusive sleep. Outside, the air was crisp and still. Streetlights cast puddled halos across empty streets. The distant hum of traffic was muffled by houses sleeping in their lawns. I took a deep breath. With each footstep, my restlessness softened. Studies show that gentle night walks reduce cortisol and prepare the body for sleep more easily, something I felt without knowing the science. I wandered without aim. My path passed silent houses, parked cars, a lone recycling bin leaning over. The world felt paused, like a slow-motion frame between day and dawn. My thoughts wandered less. I began to notice the night's texture, the coolness, the smell of damp earth, the way my hoodie felt around me. Then, somewhere near the intersection, I saw him. Under the yellow streetlight, a silhouette that looked almost nostalgic. My heart skipped. It had been years, since college, really. He was a close friend then, part of a memorable era, group projects late at night, too many takeout dinners, inside jokes that echoed through dorm halls. "Hey," I said, even as my tongue felt thick with surprise. He turned. Recognition flickered. Then he smiled that wide, genuine grin I'd forgotten I remembered living, and I remembered everything all at once. "Hey," he answered, shutting his car door. "You were out late." I shrugged, voice soft. "Couldn't sleep." He nodded, pulling his hands into his jacket pockets. "Same. Mind if I join your walk?" "Please," I said. We began walking side by side on cracked pavement, shuffling slowly, no set plan, just moving. Night has a way of compressing time. Our steps felt measured, thoughtful. Not rushed. Not forced. We fell into easy conversation. At first, it was logistics, new jobs, new cities. But as the walk continued, an hour passed in what felt like minutes, something shifted. We started sharing more, our losses, our disappointments, our quiet wins. The painful and the hopeful both rising together. He told me about moving to a city far away, feeling untethered at first, then finding a small community through a shared garden project. I spoke about how adulting felt less like freedom and more like a series of checkboxes and commitments, and how nights like this felt like the only time I could breathe. There was something in his presence, an unspoken reassurance, that I recognized from college but hadn't felt in years. We walked past an empty school bus stop, down blocks of silent houses lit only by muted lamplights. I realized how much I'd missed that kind of connection, the comfort of being seen without performative pride or filters. Research confirms that reconnecting with old friends like this can boost mental well-being, reconnect you to your identity, and reduce loneliness. He laughed as I recounted embarrassing study habits from old dorm days. I smiled as he described a relationship gone sideways, how it taught him boundaries. We found ourselves lingering on memories, warm recollections from years ago, tinted with nostalgia and growth now. Nostalgia triggers dopamine, pleasure cascades in the brain that make reconnections emotionally meaningful. I felt it in my chest, familiar, comforting, full. Moments became markers on a map of silence and speech. We passed by a construction site where jackhammers had recently stopped. There was a busted fence patched with plywood. A stray cat darted across the road. Each scene scored our conversation's arc. At 4 a.m., the eastern sky began to lighten, splotches of pale purple, then gray. We slowed. The enchantment of the night was lifting with the dawn. He stretched. "This helped," he said softly. "Didn't know I needed it." "Me too," I admitted, navigating the last stretch back home. "Thank you." He retrieved his phone. "Coffee this weekend?" he asked. "Let's not wait another decade." I smiled widely. "Absolutely." We exchanged numbers quickly, like hurried scripts before the curtain fell. He climbed into his car. The engine purred to life and pulled away, red taillights glowing until they were just two distant pinpricks fading into dawn. I walked the remaining blocks home. The streetlights blinked off one by one. Birds began tentative songs. My hoodie, now a familiar weight on my shoulders, felt like a reminder of the night's warmth. Back at my front door, I paused. The loneliness I felt lying in bed hours before had evaporated. The insomnia, the restlessness, gone. I barely remembered the TikTok scrolling or the ambient playlists. What stayed was this walking meditation, rediscovery, reconnection. I folded the hoodie, slid between the sheets, and turned off the light. Sleep arrived quickly, soft, deep, unforced. I dreamt of laughter, of windows opening, of voices carrying warmth. Sunlight crept in softly. I awakened feeling present, grounded. My phone lit up. "Great to reconnect. Coffee this weekend?" My heart fluttered. I replied, "Would love that." I placed the phone aside and just smiled. For once, I felt fully awake. At the cafe, steam swirled in the morning sun. We settled into seats facing each other, each with a latte in hand. We didn't rush, conversation came naturally. We shared recent reads, favorite podcasts, the challenge of parenting or career pivots. We laughed about that time we pulled an all-nighter fixing code in a dorm basement. He told me about a community project he'd started. I spoke of volunteer efforts I joined. We weren't just reliving the past, we were building something new atop it. Research says that rekindled ties grow stronger when built on shared effort and honest vulnerability. Our connection felt richer than nostalgia, it was hopeful, alive, promising. Life is full of unlikely doorways, sleeplessness, chance encounters, hallway revelations. Walking into the night brought me back to a piece of myself I thought was lost. It taught me that rediscovery doesn't need grand gestures, just presence, courage, and quiet openness. This story isn't extraordinary, it's human. It's about leaving the familiar long enough to find something meaningful again. It's about friendship, belonging, and the illuminating magic of dawn. In those silent hours, life whispered a reminder: when the world sleeps, our hearts wake up. And sometimes, that's when the most important reconnections begin. When the early morning light seeped through my curtains, it wasn't just the start of a new day, it felt like the beginning of something renewed. I stirred, muscles pleasantly tired from the walk, mind at ease. I reached for my phone to find his message waiting. That conversation saved me tonight. Coffee soon? Reading it, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with caffeine. I typed back, "Yes, this weekend sounds perfect," and settled into the quiet present. That night had offered more than rest, it had given me perspective. Research confirms what I'd lived: walking at night can reduce stress, calm racing thoughts, and improve sleep quality. Even better, walking alongside someone, especially a friend from long ago, can deepen that effect, offering emotional support when most needed. A few days later, we met in a small cafe bathed in soft morning light. Conversation flowed, this time unhurried and full of shared memories and hopes. The awkwardness of time past dissolved. We planned another walk and talked about inviting others, extending the reconnection ripple outward. In the end, that sleepless night taught me something simple. Sometimes, the cure for insomnia isn't found in apps or meditation, it's in movement, in open roads, in reconnection with a part of yourself held in another person. Our bodies and minds remember belonging. And research shows that nature-based walking, especially at night, boosts mood, reduces rumination, and fosters mindfulness. So yes, I couldn't sleep, but that vulnerability led to an unexpected gift, a bridge between past and present, and a reminder that even in solitude, we're never truly alone. Nature, movement, and shared conversation gave me more than rest, they restored a sense of connection that will carry long after dawn. As I settled into my bed, the home quiet and dim, I felt a gentle calm settle deep in my chest. The insomnia, once a storm of restless thoughts, had led me to a night of unexpected clarity and reconnection. The hoodie I wore, now folded neatly, felt like a token of that small decision, to walk, to meet, to breathe. Morning light crept through the curtains, and with it came a sense of restored presence. I reached for my phone. A message from him, waiting. That night meant more than you know. Coffee this weekend? My heart warmed. I replied, absolutely. At breakfast, the promise of our upcoming coffee hung in the air like hope. I made myself a simple meal, savoring every bite. The restlessness of the past nights felt distant now. Research confirms that evening walks improve sleep quality and reduce time to fall asleep, just as I'd experienced firsthand. More than that, reconnecting, even briefly, with an old friend significantly enhances mental well-being, offering emotional support, belonging, and renewed perspective. Later that weekend, we met at a quiet cafe. Steam curled from our mugs in the soft morning light. Conversation flowed, not forced, but easy and deep. We laughed at old stories, confessed current fears, and shared what we wanted for the future. It was a reconnection rooted in shared history and grown into fresh possibility. Experts say that rekindled friendships not only boost mood but can strengthen identity and resilience, and this felt true as I looked across the table. We parted with a plan for more walks, more moments of presence. I walked home with the same rhythm that had carried me through my sleepless night, only now with a gentler weight on my shoulders. What began as a frustrating night turned into something graceful, a lesson in choice, connection, and care. I learned that even insomnia can lead to clarity, to paths not taken, to conversations not held, to reconnection. And because of one small decision, to leave the bed, to step outside, I found calm and camaraderie waiting in the silence between night and dawn.